see Annie Jacobson's there over your shoulder, Nuclear War, a couple of others. Tell me why it's so urgent for you when it doesn't seem to be urgent for others, particularly those in power.
Let me start with something called the Doomsday Clock. The Doomsday Clock is what the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists started putting out in 1947 at the start of the atomic age. Now, of course, we're in the thermonuclear era, but they said we're close to disaster. We could destroy all of humanity. We could blow up the world. And they put forward a clock as a graphic. How close or how far are we from nuclear disaster? When the Doomsday Clock was first unveiled in 1947, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, these experts in the atomic age, put the minute hand at 7 minutes away from midnight. Oh my God, midnight being nuclear Armageddon. 7 minutes. They were telling us a message that we're in the Cold War. We have the beginnings of a nuclear arms race because Russia was about to get the bomb too, and then there was going to be a huge arms race, and then came the H-bomb, so-called, and so forth. Now, what has happened in the last 30 years, basically? We went farther away during periods of détente. We went closer during periods of crisis. But since 1992, every U.S. president, in my view, and according to the clock, has been in an administration where by the end of the term, the minute hand or the second hand is closer to nuclear Armageddon than it was when the president came into office. Where are we today, according to the Doomsday Clock? 90 seconds from midnight. This means, according to this expert view, with which I concur, we are closer to nuclear war than we have ever been in human history. You mentioned Annie Jacobson's book, Nuclear War, a Scenario. This is a short book about a short war. It takes about 2 hours for the world to end in this technical scenario that this superb reporter lays out meticulously, second by second. She interviewed all the atomic scientists that would talk on the record. She interviewed former Pentagon officials, former CIA officials, and so forth. What are the plans? What are the plans for fighting a nuclear war? What is known? What could happen? And in her terrifying book, and by the way, I listened to it as an audiobook with her narrating it in this meticulous clip language, the world comes to an end in 2 hours. And this is the realistic scenario as understood by U.S. leaders. Now, I've been around for some decades. I've advised dozens and dozens of heads of state and secretaries general of the UN, and I know a lot of these people. Some have been my students. I'm not overwhelmed at their intelligence, at their prudence, at their ability to keep us away from disaster. In fact, to a significant extent, I am not only underwhelmed, I watch U.S. foreign policy very close up. I watch it not only from the perspective of an expert in the United States, but from my peregrinations around the world, which are nonstop because my job is around the world. And I don't trust the United States at all. I don't trust the judgment. I don't trust how they act. I don't trust U.S. policies. And I think they are bringing us more and more to disaster. Why? Why? Because there's a certain arrogance. And I learned about this as a kid when J. William Fulbright, who was a great senator of the United States and chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in the 1960s during the Vietnam War stupidity and debacle of the United States, wrote a book called The Arrogance of Power. And I remember holding it to this moment as a kid. And he said, our government, the U.S., he was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, are so arrogant that they're creating wars and that they're creating bigger and bigger risks. Well, I guess I absorbed that message. That was more than 50 years ago, by the way. basically 60 years ago just now. And I've watched closely, and I have studied these issues, I'd say, pretty meticulously. I've read and spoken and discussed with people, with heads of state. I don't trust the United States. That's the basic point.
But if we say that the United States, if we go with, say, a gangster analogy, as the superpower with all this imperial hubris, yes, they are responsible for a lot of crimes, a lot of downstream effects. They have been for decades. I hope they don't revoke my visa when I'm saying.
I don't know about your visa. What about me?
But what about the other gangsters? Because they are other gangsters. They might be smaller gangsters. Maybe they have fewer crimes because of lack of opportunity rather than because of a greater morality than the United States, perhaps. When you focus on the crimes of the superpower, and you've been accused of this, does it make you an apologist for the Chinese, an apologist for the Russians? Tell me why we shouldn't also focus on their very well-documented crimes and the effects of those as well.
First, if we look at things quantitatively, the biggest gangster of the 19th century was Britain, by far. And they just loved their empire, and they commanded around 25% of the world's territory at the height of the British Empire. And there is a well-known, semi-humorous but quite serious book documenting